Warning. Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat involves the discussion of horror and suspense movies. These movies often include violent, frightening, and disturbing content. Also, we sometimes discuss ladies and their lovely physical attributes, and we sometimes discuss topics considered naughty to talk about in polite company. This program is intended for audiences over the age of 18. Viewer discretion is advised.
All right, good morning, everybody. Come on, let's everybody get settled in so we can get our weekly production meeting started. Fancy, that means you too. Come on, settle down. Come on, settle down, everybody. We've got a lot to cover this morning. Okay, so as you are no doubt aware, Helen from PBDC TV headquarters sent somebody out to sit with us this week and observe while we put this week's episode together. So let's all be on our best behavior and welcome Ms. Penelope von Fuzzlerump. So, Penelope, would you like to say a few words before I start the meeting?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Penelope and I will be running this show from now on.
Whoa, wait a minute. That's not what Helen told me last week.
Silence. Cal, you are a festering boil of a writer and I will not tolerate your interruptions. I am the showrunner now. And as far as you are concerned, her name is Miss Trash Panda. Your blatant lack of respect for your betters at PBDC TV headquarters is one of the many things that made it necessary to replace you. From now on I will oversee all aspects of the production of this show. You all will report directly to me. And, just to be clear, I wish to be addressed by my formal title, which is Princess Penelope.
Princess Penelope?
Hold your tongue, demon spawn. Princess Penelope is speaking. For too long this show has been a chaotic, undisciplined circus. Miss Trash Panda sent me here to change that. I have devised a comprehensive strategy to revive this program and my changes will be put into place immediately. First of all, this program spends far too much on catering services. From now on, there will be no more on-site donut trucks, no more taco and gyro Tuesdays, and no more Nutter Butter cookies.
Damn you, Carl, you suck.
Wait, what? Me? How is this my fault? I'm not the one who walked off the job last week.
In addition, you are expected to dress professionally while in the workplace. There will be no more pants, optional Wednesdays.
Damn you, Cal, you suck.
These are not my rules. Why is everyone blaming me?
Settle down, subjects. Princess Penelope is speaking. I have reviewed the ratings for this show and they are, to put it mildly, a disaster. For example, did you realize that almost none of your viewers are preteen girls between the ages of 7 and 12?
Well, yeah, it's not really a part of our target audience.
Cal, this is exactly the lack of vision that led to me replacing you. Preteen girls are the most lucrative demographic group in the world. Starting with this week's show, we will be making a number of changes to make the show more accessible to 9-year-old girls.
Have you ever actually watched the show?
With a few changes we believe the merchandising potential for this show is unlimited.
Merchandising potential? How do you plan to appeal to 9-year-old girls with a show about horror movies?
Obviously we will be making some changes to the content of the show. Frankly, I am surprised you have not made these changes already. As artists, integrity demands that you identify the most lucrative segments in the market and modify your content to appeal to those people.
I'm pretty sure that's the opposite of integrity.
Integrity means different things to different people. Anyway, I will be instituting a number of changes to broaden the appeal of this week's show. Cal, since you are no longer running the show, for the time being I will need you to act as our office manager. Your first job is to find me an office, with a locking door. It will need to be close to the hot tub. I also will need a wine chiller. I would prefer an office with a private bathroom and shower, although we can have the designers install that later. Also, I will need a desk for my administrative assistant.
We're hiring an administrative assistant?
He's already here. He came with me from headquarters. Malcolm, would you like to introduce yourself? This is my administrative assistant, Malcolm Fluffosaurus.
Fluffosaurus?
Good morning to you all. Hello, Father.
Malcolm, you are looking well. I trust all is well with you and your mother.
Do you mean since you abandoned us 8 years ago?
Son, I was never meant to be tied down. Monogamy is too cruel of a rule.
Okay, this is getting really awkward.
If you have any questions, please talk to Malcolm. If you need to meet with me, please make an appointment with Malcolm. You are not to speak to me directly. Frankly, all of you disgust me. You all have your revised scripts and show notes. Now please roll the new opening credit.
What the hell was that?
Steve, we're making some creative changes this week. Just read the teleprompter.
Seriously? I missed one production meeting and what the hell? Everything's pink. Okay, all right. Let me see what the teleprompter says. Hello and welcome to Princess Unicorn and her fluffy friends, the most magically fantastic place in all the land. I'm your host, Stephen Snugglepuss. What the hell? Tonight's show is going to be a magically fun, good time. First, Princess Gwenivere will bring us the first chapter in our new series about the life of Taylor Swift. Then we'll move on to our discussion of Netflix's new release, The Kissing Booth Part 3, with a follow-up discussion about the classic film High School Musical? The hell? Okay, this is all news to me, folks. I spent the whole week preparing to talk about Wrong Turn 2 and The Descent. So, anyway, tonight's show should be interesting. There may be a bump or two, but I'm sure we'll get this all worked out. Anyway, we're glad you're all here. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, here we go.
Stop this. Stop this at once. This is completely off-plan. Stop. Ladies and gentlemen, you have my most sincere apologies. Our incompetent production assistant obviously ran the wrong segment. Rest assured that the guilty party will face swift justice. Now please enjoy this episode of Steve's Magic Words and Phrases.
Hello, princes and princesses. This is Stephen Snugglepuss here to talk to you about Princess Unicorn's magical words and phrases. Today, we are going to learn about magical words and phrases for summoning your own unicorn. Oh yes, this script that I have in front of me that I did not write nor did I approve of is chock full of magical words and phrases that you can use to summon your own unicorn from the magical realm of Unicorn Land to bring to your very home. So, what's the first magic phrase you should use? Well, it is Alexa, show me Princess Unicorn. This will cause a wide assortment of PBDC TV unicorn products to appear before your eyes as if by magic. Now, once you have selected your unicorn, the next phrase is Alexa, buy now, of course. Oh, good God. Okay, so once you have said Alexa, buy now, the next word is very, very important. You must say Visa. Visa is the magic word that actually allows your unicorn to make the transition from the land of unicorns to the world in which you live. Now, on the off chance that the magic word Visa does not work, you must use the magic phrase Google Pay. Oh, God. So, once you have done that, please use the magic phrase, decline extended warranty. Well, we have that going for us at least. Maybe this isn't as bad as I'm thinking. And finally, the final magic phrase that you must use is choose express shipping, because otherwise your unicorn may starve to death in transit. Oh, good God, we are all going straight to hell. So that is how you can summon your own unicorn. Penelope? Yeah, could you do me a favor? I'm getting some audio feedback in here. Could you, step into the server room and make sure the cooling fan is not vibrating? This happens sometimes. Yes, right through that door. No, I understand it looks like a broom closet. We keep the server in there behind all the cleaning supplies in case we ever need to wipe the server. Yeah, that's good. Just step on in. Okay, that should buy us about 2 minutes. Let's roll the real vocabulary lesson now. Everybody, set down your drinks and pick up your notebooks. It is time for Steve's vocabulary lesson. This, of course, is the part of the show where we discuss new and innovative words and phrases in an effort to stay ahead of social media bots and algorithms that would otherwise try to ban our discussion. We have 3 new words this week, plus we have to review a word from a few weeks back. So let's start off with that. Number 1, long division. Now, this should look familiar if you were with us a few weeks back. Long division, just to review, is a noun referring to the process of dividing a character into 2 symmetrical halves along its long axis, which leads into a new term for today, Dutch treating. Dutch treating is a noun that is a colloquial variation on long division and refers to the action of dividing a character into 2 symmetrical halves along its long axis, with each of the resulting halves then being claimed by a different character. So, historically, when you've heard the term Dutch treating, it's 2 people splitting the check. In this, it's 2 people splitting the victim. Next word, accent clonking. And as you might have gathered, accent clonking is a noun that refers to the action of striking a character in the head with an axe or hatchet. And finally, last word for this lesson, M80ing. M80ing is a noun that refers to the action of attaching dynamite or a similar explosive to a character and then blowing him up, much in the same way that so many of us blew up model cars and airplanes in our youth. So those are Steve's vocabulary words for this week. Please keep them in mind. They will become important later in this episode, and that is our vocabulary lesson for this week.
Once again, I must apologize. Clearly there are some pockets of resistance here in the magical land of the unicorns that still need to be vanquished. Rest assured that Princess Penelope's wrath will be felt by those responsible. In the meantime, please enjoy this history lesson from Princess Gwenivere.
Hello there. I am Princess Gwenivere. Today I am here to tell you the story of one of the most magical princesses of all. She was born with a magical voice, which she used to conjure the wealthiest kingdom in all the land. Tonight we will have the first of our 10-part tribute to this magical princess, the lovely Taylor Swift. Princess Penelope, I am getting some audio feedback here in the studio. Could you please go to the server room and check to see if the coolant fan is vibrating? It's right through that door.
No. I will not. I am not falling for that trick again. I'm going to stay right here.
Of course. We will just have to eliminate the interference using other means. Fancy, please initiate Plan Broken Arrow.
Wait, what's Plan Broken Arrow?
Okay, nice work, team. Great teamwork. Edgar, lock her up in the conference room and stand guard. Do not take your eyes off of her. Do not let her leave. Ravina's already distracting Malcolm in the break room with the last of the Nutter Butters, so we're good there. Fancy, initiate the zombie defense protocol and lock down the building. There's no telling how Helen's going to retaliate once she hears about this. All right, Gwen, the floor is yours. We're rolling your reel segment now.
Millions of years ago, geological forces conspired to create the region referred to today as the Appalachian Mountains. They are peaceful and serene, a place of sublime beauty. At least this is how it appears to the untrained eye. In reality, the Appalachian Mountains are a killing field. Beneath their beautiful veneer, The Appalachian Mountains are terrorized by a scourge that infests many areas of North America, an unchecked population of cannibal hillbillies. The mountains of West Virginia, the plains of Texas, the desert wastelands of the Southwest, and untold other rural regions of the United States and Canada are home to these simple, backwoods folk with a taste for the savory flavor of human flesh. Literally dozens of college students on spring break and families driving recreational vehicles across country are consumed by cannibal hillbillies every year, with no end to the terror in sight. In light of this epidemic of rural barbarity, one must ask a simple question: where did the cannibal hillbillies come from? For what possible reason would groups of otherwise decent country folk descend to such savage behavior? To answer these questions, we are joined once again by conspiracy enthusiast and published author, Crimson Meerkat. Mr. Meerkat, can you provide us with some insights regarding the origin of this plague of cannibal hillbillies?
Hello, and thank you for having me on your show, Gwenivere. My name is, well, you don't need to know what my name is. Just call me Crimson Meerkat. Yeah, that's my code name, Crimson Meerkat. And as you know, I have published 3 books, and I am working on a 4th book right now, so I am quite the expert on this subject, and you must listen to me. These cannibal hillbillies are not what you expect. If anything, they're the victims in this whole situation. The first recorded incidents of cannibal hillbillies date back to the 1970s, and by performing a painstaking search of public records, I have traced their origin back to secret projects funded by a consortium of energy-producing corporations.
Wait. So you are saying that cannibal hillbillies are not the creation of a government conspiracy or invading aliens?
No. Oh, no. This one has private sector written all over it. It all goes back to the energy shortages and malaise of the 1970s. The OPEC nations had limited oil production, people were sitting in gas lines because of fuel shortages, and all the president wanted to do about it was tell people to put on a sweater and turn down the thermostat. So a small consortium of oil, gas, and coal companies got together and funded a secret project to develop a system of mind control that would allow them to increase energy production by convincing their workforce to take on hundreds of hours of unpaid overtime. The system worked in 2 parts. The first part was a chemical agent that was injected into the water supply in areas like West Virginia coal mining country and the oil fields in rural Texas. The chemical made the brain highly open to suggestion, but that was only part of the operation. The second part was a series of subliminal messages implanted within broadcasts that all of the affected workers would be sure to watch.
I see. This is all very interesting. Am I to assume that their mind control chemical did not work as planned?
Oh, it worked all right. It worked perfectly. The problem was that nobody realized that a couple of other consortiums had a similar idea. So here you have the oil and coal companies sending out a subliminal message to give people an insatiable desire to produce more coal and gas. Unfortunately, those same broadcasts also contain subliminal messages from the National Association of Pork Rind Producers, encouraging people to eat more pork rinds. And it also contained another set of subliminal messages from a restaurant chain that later would become the Hooters Corporation. So the messages got all mixed up together and confused, and instead of an insatiable desire to produce more coal and gas, people developed an insatiable need to eat attractive women in their 20s. It's all very sad, Gwenivere. It's all very sad.
This is fascinating. And the project was so successful that it continues to produce results even to this day?
Oh yeah, once the chemical is in your system, it's there for good. It gets passed on genetically to the next generation. Now that by itself isn't a big deal. You also have to have the subliminal messages, but as far as the subliminal signal goes, hee-haw is still in syndication in a lot of these places, and every time a network executive considers taking it off the schedule, he gets mysteriously eaten.
This all sounds like a story from a science fiction movie.
Yes, Gwenivere, I know exactly which film you're talking about. As it turns out, the same energy consortium paid off Fox Studios to put out the film Serenity as a way to get ahead of a news story that was about to break. By getting the movie out first, they managed to make the news story look fake, so the editors killed it.
So the film industry is involved in this conspiracy as well?
Oh, always. They're always involved. I mean, have you seen Justice League? Things like that don't just happen by accident. There's just too many safeguards in place.
It is very brave of you to come forward like this. Have you considered the possibility that appearing on this show might lead to some form of retaliation?
Wait, what? You said Fancy would give me protection if I broke the story on your show. You promised me.
I have no recollection of that.
Judas! Betrayers! Oh, you vile, evil people! You've done it to me again! Oh, why do I keep returning to this show?
Presumably it's because you need the money.
Yeah, that sums it up pretty well. Okay, I'll be going to ground and covering my tracks now. Just put my appearance money in a paper bag and drop it in the dumpster behind the refrigerator box next to the river. You know, the one that smells really, really bad. I'll pick it up when the coast is clear. This is Crimson Meerkat signing off.
That brings us to the end of this episode of Gwen's History Lesson. Please remember to join us this Saturday, as we present an 8-hour marathon of classic episodes of Hee Haw, sponsored by Hooters Restaurants. This has been Gwen's History Lesson, hosted by Gwenivere. Thank you for watching.
And now it's time for our featured film reviews.
Let's get into our first featured film review for this evening. We're going to talk about the film Wrong Turn 2, Dead End. And there you see the poster right there. This is a cannibal hillbilly horror slasher film released in the year 2007, directed by Joe Lynch, and the cast includes Erica Learson, Henry Rollins, Texas Battle, and an appearance by Kimberly Caldwell. Yes, Kimberly Caldwell, American Idol finalist. Yep, she has an appearance in this film. So let's talk about setting your expectations for Wrong Turn 2. What you should expect is a straight-up, no-frills cannibal hillbilly horror movie that went straight to video, yet is better than you would think. The reason you should watch is this is a pretty decent film that is much better than you would expect based upon its lineage. This is the kind of movie that normally I skip over when I see on streaming services. It's the straight-to-video sequel to a not-that-great original. Turns out this is the best movie of the Wrong Turn series, and this one is actually a decent option for you, available through streaming. If you like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre or The Hills Have Eyes or the original Wrong Turn, you will probably like this film. And let's talk about calibrating your expectations a little bit. Here's the scale we like to use. On the far left, we talk about very campy movies, Jason X and Sharknado. On the very right, we talk about various serious movies like The Silence of the Lambs. This is not a measure of the quality of the film. This is a measure of the attitude you need to have going into the film in order to enjoy it. Wrong Turn 2, not a serious film. You want to be pretty far to the left on this, so go into this one expecting to have some fun, expecting to have a good time. Do not go into this one expecting art, and you will probably enjoy it. Let's get into a film summary. So this is a follow-up to Wrong Turn, which is a film about mutant cannibal hillbillies that live in the West Virginia woods and survive by setting traps for unsuspecting motorists, which, of course, screenwriters who have never left New York or Los Angeles assume West Virginia is just full of. An assortment of attractive 20-somethings head into the West Virginia wilderness to participate in the pilot episode of a reality show and a chance to win a $100,000 prize. The show, which is based upon the idea of having to survive in the wilderness after society has collapsed, requires contestants to pair up and go into the woods to search for food, water, and other supplies. The cast and crew do not realize that they are filming in the hunting grounds of a group of cannibal hillbillies, because apparently cannibal hillbillies are a real thing, if you are to believe screenwriters who live in Los Angeles and New York. The cannibal hillbillies are inbred, of course, and have been mutated by toxic waste in the drinking water, of course, making them nearly impervious to pain and injury, and they are hungry. So let's talk about them a little bit. We don't learn their actual name for this family. I'm sure I could probably do some research and find the actual name of this cannibal hillbilly family, but I'm not going to do that. We're just going to refer to them as the mutant cannibal hillbilly family, and there's a picture. These belong to the class of mutant cannibal hillbillies. Their special powers are that they are nearly impervious to pain, highly damage resistant, they can survive things that would kill regular people because of their mutations, and they are highly skilled with bows, arrows, and thrown weapons. They don't have a particular signature weapon. They use various weapons, including knives and bows and arrows, and their signature technique is they eat who they kill. So, in some respects, they are better than other serial killers because they at least have the decency to eat what they kill, so nothing goes to waste. Let's get into things Steve liked about this film. It is an unapologetic, straightforward splatterfest throwback to the splatter films of the 1980s. Now, it doesn't necessarily have an 80s feel in terms of the cinematography or the atmosphere of the film, but just the campiness and seriousness with which they treat the subject, which is not very much, is straight out of an 80s slasher film. Henry Rollins is an awesome hero in this film. It keeps the action moving at a reasonable pace. It does not drag. Some of the characters are actually quite likable. Now, not all of them. Some of the characters are spectacularly unlikable, but that's intentional. I was kind of surprised which one ended up being the final girl. Now, when I go into these films, I make it a point not to look at things like IMDb ahead of time, so I don't know who has top billing, so I don't know from that who's going to be the final girl and who isn't. I was just making my decision just based upon, an analysis of the characters at the start of the film, and the one I thought was going to be the final girl was not. In fact, she went out pretty early. It does not take itself too seriously, and therefore you should not take this film too seriously. If you expect art, you will not enjoy this film. If you go in expecting a film that's fun to watch with your buddies and maybe play a drinking game with, you will enjoy this film. Considering that this is a direct-to-video sequel to a not particularly great film, I was surprised how much I liked this film. It is much better than I expected. This is widely considered to be the best film in the Wrong Turn franchise, which might be faint praise, but it is actually a reasonably good option for you available through streaming. I was surprised. It is not the greatest film ever. I've talked about movies before that there's nothing in particular that's really outstanding about them. They're just like a baseball player that does everything well but is not Hall of Fame caliber at any one particular thing. This film kind of goes into that category. It's just a good, straightforward splatterfest, and it is a good companion piece to the movie The Descent that we will be talking about later on this evening. Things that could have been better, well, there are a number of them. Number one, mediocre acting with the possible exception of Henry Rollins. Some of the characters are very unlikable, although this is intentional. The cannibal hillbilly makeup effects are not particularly convincing. They're not bad, but you're not going to look at that and say, wow, is that makeup or is that a real person? It's very obviously latex. There is some use of computer graphic special effects, and they do not look that great, and that's just a budgetary thing, so I kind of give them a pass on this. It was a direct-to-video film. There's going to be computer graphics baked into the business case for any film that's going straight to video. Fortunately, it's not an overload of it. There is an assortment of practical special effects in this as well, so it's not all computer graphics, but there are some, and they're not great. It is a somewhat predictable story. There's two schools of thought when you make a sequel. One is to do a new story of building upon the story from the first movie. The other, which is the one they went with here, is to basically just do a lower budget remake of the first movie and put the number 2 on the cover of the movie. And that's what they did here. So it's somewhat predictable, but again, that's kind of baked into a direct-to-video sequel. Let's get to Steve's scorecard for Wrong Turn to Dead End. Kills, 14. Bare breasts, 2, and they are pretty nice. Possumings, 1. Tangerinings. There is a pair of tangerinings in this film. Dutch treatings. Yes, there is one case of long division in this film where each of the cannibal hillbillies politely claims half of the result. So there is a Dutch treating in this film. Accent clonkings. There is an accent clonking. M80ings. Not 1, not 2. There are 3 M80ings in this film. And finally, instuinatings, 2, and they are synchronized. Yes, tandem instuination in this film. It is a marvel to behold. It's worth watching just for that. But with your viewing of Wrong Turn to Dead End, you also get some bonus features such as American Idol flavored face eating, Electric Avenue, yes, the song. It's just funny. You get prudish football players. Where did they get the Polaroids? I mean, where did the Cannibal Hillbilly family get the Polaroid camera? I guess they got it off of a tourist that they ate. You get accidental cannibalism. Hey, this barbecue pork isn't actually barbecue pork. It's Kimberly Caldwell. Yes, Kimberly Caldwell, the other white meat. You get mutant cannibal hillbilly childbirth, which I could have lived without. You get mutant cannibal hillbilly self-gratification that I really could have lived without. You get self-gratifying mutant cannibal hillbilly, caught in the act by his mutant cannibal hillbilly girlfriend, which did not make it better. And finally, topping out the list of things I could have lived without, mutant cannibal hillbilly getting busy. I will say I am impressed with the cannibal hillbilly's rebound time, because he went straight from self-gratification to getting busy with not a whole lot of downtime in between, so good for him, I suppose. So let's get to Steve's final score for Wrong Turn to Dead End. We're going to give this one 2.5 paws out of 4. We're going to say this is a better than expected, straightforward cannibal hillbilly slasher feature with the feel of a classic 80s splatterfest. And it is much better than you would expect from a straight-to-video sequel. Not a great movie, but not a bad movie, and one that is available to you from a variety of sources. This one actually appeared in my my Voodoo collection. I never bought this movie. It's just one of those that they just kind of gave me, and that's where I discovered this one. And it's actually, like I said, better than I expected, better than the original Wrong Turn, better than Wrong Turn 3. Did they only make 3? It seems. I know they made at least 3, because the one at the end has the scene with the snowmobile. Yeah, Wrong Turn 2. You could do worse, so I would cautiously recommend it. Not the greatest movie you've ever seen, but if you're looking for a splatterfest that you're not going to take too seriously, you could do a lot worse. So that is Steve's final score for Wrong Turn 2 Dead End.
This is Mikey from Out of the Ordinary, and you're watching PBDC TV.
First thing in the morning, when I'm listening to music and getting a little bit of time for some creepy research, I'm always representing with my PBDC merch. What a better way to have a cup of coffee in the morning.
Don't forget to check out our other cool merch at rootsbleedred.com. That's rootsbleedred.com.
This is Professor Edgar Fluffosaurus from Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat, and when I'm not hosting Monster Chat or knocking down small Japanese cities, I'm watching PBDC TV. Now back to the show.
Let's get into our second featured film review for this evening, one of my all-time favorites, The Descent. There you see the poster right there, obviously a reference to the famous photograph by Halsman and Salvador Dali that was also referenced in the poster to The Silence of the Lambs. This is a horror creature feature released in the UK in 2005, released in the United States in 2006, and I call those out separately because technically the two films are not the same. The ending of the film was changed for the American release because the ending of the British version did not test well in the United States, so the endings are a little bit different. The film is directed by Neil Marshall, and the cast includes Shauna McDonald, who you may remember from last week's movie Howl, Natalie Mendoza, and Alex Reed. And just for your information, I am reviewing the US release, the 2006 version of The Descent. I have never seen the UK version of this film, although I have read about the differences in the endings between the two. Let's talk about setting your expectations for this film. What you should expect is one of the best creature features you will ever watch. Full stop. Why you should watch is this is an outstanding creature feature with excellent tension and suspense throughout, and every aspect of this film is terrific. Now, if you liked last week's movie Howl, you should like this film. And we talked about this a bit last week. Howl was directed by the person who did the special effects, the creature effects for this film, The Descent. So the two films do go together, and Shauna McDonald did appear in both of them. Honestly, if you like any creature feature, I believe you will like The Descent. And also, I've thrown into the list Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I'm referring to the TV series. It could just as easily be referring to the movie, but just the ensemble, slightly feminist feel of that. If you enjoy Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I bet you will enjoy The Descent. Let's talk about setting your expectations. Here's the scale we use for every film. On the far left side of the scale is the mindset you want to have if you're going into a very campy film such as Sharknado or Jason X. On the very right side of the scale is the mindset you want to have if you're going into a very serious film such as The Silence of the Lambs. The Descent is all the way over there on the right. It falls just a little short of where you're going to be for The Silence of the Lambs. You need a little more suspension of disbelief for The Descent just because it involves basically an underground cryptid, as opposed to a serial killer, which we all know serial killers are real. There's got to be a little bit of suspension of disbelief when you watch The Descent, but otherwise it is a very serious film. You want to go into it with a serious mindset. This is not the film you watch to play drinking games and root for the monsters to eat the people. Let's do a quick film summary. This is an outstanding British creature feature that utilizes an all-female cast. There is only one male character in this movie, and he is only in like the first 3 minutes of it, and I think I counted all of 2 lines of dialogue from him. Other than that, it is an entirely female cast. Now, in this film, thrill-seeking friends Sarah, Beth, and Juno meet up in Scotland for a whitewater rafting trip, along with Sarah's husband and Sarah's young daughter. After the rafting is over, on the way back to the hotel from the river, there is a car accident in which Sarah's husband and daughter are both killed, and it is very hard to watch. A year later, the friends meet in the Appalachian Mountains of North Carolina for a spelunking adventure. That means they're going to go down in a cave, along with 3 other friends. This is Sarah's first attempt at getting out and living life after the loss of her husband and her daughter. Now, when I originally put this week's episode together with the movies Wrong Turn 2 and The Descent, I mistakenly assumed that this film took place in West Virginia. It does take place in the Appalachian Mountains, but not technically in West Virginia. Technically, it takes place in North Carolina, but it is still the Appalachian Range. It is still, related to Wrong Turn 2 in that respect. But Mistake on my part. I thought this film took place in West Virginia, but when I rewatched The Descent yet again and did a little reading about it, sure enough, it takes place in North Carolina, not West Virginia. As the women work their way into the cave, a section of tunnel collapses, trapping them underground. The only option for survival is to press on deeper into the cave and hope to find another exit on the other side of the mountain. As the 6 women venture deeper into the cave, they begin to suspect that they are not alone. Something else is down there with them. Now, technically, the movie never gives a name to that something else that is down there, but if you look in the credits, and they do give credit to the people who played the creatures in this film, they refer to them as crawlers, so we're going to call them crawlers. There you see a picture of one through night vision right there, one creeping up behind Beth. Crawlers are subterranean cryptids. Their special powers are they can utilize echolocation to find you in the dark, and they have a freakish ability to climb up cave walls and across cave ceilings. They're almost like Spider-Man, the way they can go up and down walls. Their signature weapon is claws and teeth, and their signature technique, well, the funny thing about the crawlers want to eat you. Killing you is coincidental. They don't really care about killing you, they just want to eat you. Of course, if they're eating you, death is eventually going to come. So let's talk about some of the things I liked about this film right off the bat. This is an expertly made film. It is well acted, it is well written, and the cinematography is just outstanding. The film looks fantastic on screen. Now, interesting thing about this film, although it takes place in North Carolina in theory, the film was filmed in the UK. So the exterior shots in this film, even though it's supposed to be in the mountains in North Carolina, it's actually filmed in Scotland. And all the cave interiors in this film were actually filmed in Pinewood Studios. So this actually used sound stages instead of real caves. The rationale for that is that it was just going to be too expensive, too impractical, and frankly too dangerous to do the filming down in real caves. And if you watch this film, you will quickly come to the conclusion that, yeah, he's absolutely right. The director would not have been able to make this movie affordably and safely down in real caves. There is non-stop tension and suspense throughout the film. At some point, this film is going to scare you. You're gonna jump at some point. I don't care how big a horror movie fan you are. I don't care how big a mental callus you have to being frightened by things that happen on screen. At some point, I bet you're gonna jump in this film. This film has fantastic creature effects. Like we said, the creature effects in this film were done by the person who directed last week's movie Howl, which was also very good. The film manages to, on the one hand, turn the cave into a gigantic subterranean wilderness, so you've got these big expansive shots where the cave just seems enormous and going on and on, but at the same time it also makes you feel the claustrophobia of being trapped underground. There are parts in this film where the ladies have to crawl through various little tunnels that are not much bigger around than they are to get from one chamber in the cave to the next. And if you are a little bit claustrophobic like I am, it is just absolutely brutal to watch. It's just terrifying. The film utilizes a cast of strong female characters and avoids descending into stereotypical horror movie character archetypes. They all feel like real people. This is not a film where you check the boxes and say, okay, she's the slut, she's the brain, she's the rich girl, she's the sweet girl, and so on. You don't have any of that. These all feel like real people who have real lives, real personalities, real strengths, and real flaws. The relationship between Sarah and Beth in particular feels very real, and you will overall root for the characters in this film. This is, like I said, not a film where you come and root for the crawlers to eat the monsters and take bets on who's going to get eaten next. This is a film where you sit on the edge of your seat the entire time and want these ladies to succeed. You will find yourself holding your breath at various parts of the film from the suspense. There's just things throughout the film, and they go about it different ways that are just going to make you hold your breath. You might not know you're holding your breath. You'll just be sitting on the edge of your seat and you'll suddenly realize, oh, I've not breathed in a while because I'm just holding my breath waiting to see how this is going to end. Things that could have been better. Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I think this film is pretty close to perfect, so these are just a few nitpicks I threw together, frankly, to fill up the slide. The evolution and the abilities of the crawlers is a little bit confused, and before I even get into this, I'm going to say right up front, these ladies are recreational cavers. They are not on a scientific expedition. These are not cryptozoologists. One of them is in medical school, so she's the one that makes some conclusions about the crawlers based upon what they discover. But none of them are experts in cryptozoology or anything along that line. So this is not a film that's supposed to be a treatise upon the biological development of the crawlers. So take all of this with a grain of salt. On the one hand, the crawlers are supposed to be totally blind since they have evolved underground. Yet we later find that they do sometimes venture up to the surface to hunt. Now, presumably at night, but still, if they're getting exposed to the outside world from time to time, you would think that they wouldn't be totally blind. Now, the easy way to explain this is to say that the character in the film is simply wrong. When she says, wow, look, they're totally blind, in reality, I assume that, okay, they're not totally blind. Their vision is attuned to the darkness for the fact that they live in caves, but they probably can at least see a little bit of movement. So I give them a pass on this. And also, maybe, and they don't get into this, but maybe these things evolved deeper and deeper underground, and this particular cluster of them has been trapped closer to the surface by a cave collapse, and they've had to adapt and learn to hunt on the surface. Who knows? During hand-to-hand combat, at least one of the crawlers appears to be able to see well enough to block oncoming blows. It's difficult to believe it could do that through echolocation. So again, I'm just going to say the simple explanation to this is the lady who is the caver who is in med school who says these things are totally blind from having evolved underground. I'm going to say she's wrong and that they're not totally blind. They're largely blind, but they can detect motion. If somebody is carrying, for example, a glow stick, it can see what you're doing. And finally, at times in the film, the ladies are able to lie motionless and hide from the crawlers. Frankly, you would expect a predator to have a keen enough sense of smell to thwart that tactic. So yeah, okay, if you lie still and in the dark and don't make any sound, the creatures that hunt primarily by sound aren't going to be able to hear you, but you'd like to think it could smell you. Now again, they maybe could explain that by saying they've done something to mask the scent. My advice is don't pull at this too hard. Like I said, this is not a scientific expedition. This is just a bunch of women who are on a recreational cave diving trip and get trapped down there. So the film doesn't necessarily get into explaining the backstory behind the crawlers a whole lot. I only point this out to say you can find a couple of holes in the logic behind the crawlers if you poke at it too hard. But honestly, the movie is so good and the movie has so much tension and suspense that you really won't spend any time obsessing on plot holes related to the crawlers. So let's get to Steve's scorecard for The Descent. Kills, 17, and that includes crawlers. Bare breasts, none. This is a fairly feminist film. It is not a strip down and look at the pretty girls naked movie. Now I put asterisks there because the crawlers are played by live actors and live actresses, and one of the crawlers it does look like you see some bear crawler breasts, but like we talked about with Howl last week and like we talked about with Ginger Snaps, we are not going to get into keeping scores of non-human breasts, even if it is a live actress playing the part. Denoggenings, none. Insnappinatings, yes, there is one. Brunchings, there are two, and one of them we'll talk about in a second. One of them is just really chilling. Pez dispensering, there is one very thorough Pez dispensering in this film. Angler fishings, well, it's continual. They're down in a cave. They're continually walking around with lanterns, trying to find their way around, drawing the attention of anything that is down there. Now, whether the crawlers are completely blind or mostly blind but able to detect them through the lights, we'll leave that open. But what goes without saying is that they're making noise and thus attracting the attention of the crawlers that way. Burkings. Oh yes, there is a burking in this film. There is a betrayal. And accent clonkings. Now, I've said one with an asterisk. Now, technically, there's no axe and clonkings in this film because there are no axes. The ladies are carrying, I guess what you call ice axes. So it's like the ice pick on one side that you can drive into a sheet of ice and use it to pull yourself up. And they do use those at various times to fight against the crawlers, but I've said one with an asterisk because there's one particular event in this film that is of supreme importance, and it does involve one of these ice axes. So let's get into what bonus features you have when you watch The Descent. Well, you get bats in the box. Not a jack in the box, you get bats in the box. You get husband on a stick, and it is very sad. You get a boneyard. Yes, down in the caves where the crawlers keep all of their kills, you get a massive, creepy boneyard. You get a literal bloodbath. You get a mercy killing, and that is supremely, supremely sad and difficult to watch. You get live brunching in a tube. Now, like I said earlier, the crawlers want to eat you. They don't necessarily care about killing you. And at various points in this film, the women are crawling through some pretty narrow passages. And just imagine that the claustrophobic nightmare of crawling through one of these narrow passages. You can't really reach down towards your feet because you're just kind of spread out prone to crawl your way through this tunnel. And something grabs you from below the waist and starts pulling at you, and you can't get to it with your hands to fight with it. All you can do is try to kick at it and pull away while it starts munching on you. It is so terrifying. And finally, does anybody actually keep their car keys in the sun visor? Now, based upon what Hollywood has been telling me since I was a child, if I were to keep count of every time I have seen somebody just flip down the sun visor to get the keys to start a car, I would bet the count is into the thousands. And yet, I have literally never seen this happen in real life. And so, my assumption is that at some point during film school they teach you, hey, we have kind of a tacit agreement with the movie-going audience that we will just allow people to find car keys up in the sun visor to get around the question of how did the person get the car keys in these films. I'm just curious, and sound off in the comments, have you ever in your life ever seen anybody actually keep their car keys in the sun visor? I have not, but you know, I'm open to other people's experiences. So, Steve's final score for The Descent. I'm going to give this one 4 paws out of 4. I just love this film. I watch it several times a year. I just love it. It is a brilliant creature feature and frankly one of the best horror films you will ever see. It is well acted, well directed, loaded with tension and suspense, fantastic creature effects, and it has a cast of characters that you will want to see succeed. Now, if I want to poke at it really hard, I can come up with some implausibilities about the crawlers, but I can also resolve all of those in my mind just as easily. So I give this film 4 paws out of 4. I cannot recommend The Descent highly enough. If you have not seen it, for goodness sake, watch it. Watch it this evening. It is fantastic. When I watched this, it was available free with ads on Tubi. From time to time, it appears on Amazon Prime Video. It's available a variety of places. It's kind of a staple out there. It's a classic, a modern classic. Cannot say enough good things about this film. If you've not seen it, my goodness, please watch it. Absolutely love The Descent. And that is our second featured film review for this evening. We are almost to the end of this episode of Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat, but before we go, it's time to spend just a minute talking about some other stuff Steve watched this week. Number 1, Sorority Row, and this is the 2009 film Sorority Row, which at the time I'm recording this was available on Tubi free with ads. In this film, 5 sorority girls stage a prank on one of their friends and end up accidentally killing somebody for real. Things come back to haunt them a year later, and if this sounds a bit familiar, this is a 2009 remake of the 80s classic slasher film The House on Sorority Row, and obviously this storyline has been reproduced in things such as I Know What You Did Last Summer, so it's not the most innovative story you've ever heard. It's a mainstream release slasher film that was targeted at the big screen, and targets a teen and collegiate age audience. That said, if you know that going in, if you accept that going in, it's reasonably entertaining. It's not the most innovative slasher film you've ever seen, but that's because it's a mainstream release and it had to be at least somewhat accessible to novice fans, but above average, not as bad as I expected. Number 2, I watched a movie on Tubi free with ads called 11-11-11. So what is 11-11-11? Well, in this film, parents Jack and Melissa are concerned about their young son's strange behavior. As well they should be, because their son turns out to be the gateway to the apocalypse. Yes, this is a low-budget ripoff of The Omen. And to boot, this film is from the Asylum. Yes, the fine folks that gave us the Sharknado movies. So be warned. Now, that said, I was able to make it to the finish of this film, which surprised me. I did not expect to make it to the end of this one once I saw that the film was from the Asylum. Now, the film is nothing special. You certainly should not go out of your way for it, but it's also not the worst thing I've ever seen, and as Asylum films go, that's pretty strong praise. So don't watch a better movie in favor of this one, but it's better than staring at the wall. Third film for this week, Nemesis Nosferatu, once again available free with ads on Tubi. In this film, the cast of the Harker Arts Academy puts on a stage production of the 1922 film Nosferatu. And as you might expect, the cast features somebody who is, shall we say, quite the method actor. Yes, there is blood aplenty. Now, this is a low-budget film with poor production values. It does not look so good on screen. That said, I enjoyed it more than I expected. It's a middle-of-the-road film that's better than it appears. So what I mean by that is when you get it started, you're going to look at it and say, oh, wow, this is really low budget. This is going to be a real piece of crap. And then you're going to find out that the movie's actually better than those visual first impressions would lead you to believe. It's not great, but it's not bad. One caveat about this film, if you read the information on this film, it's going to say that it stars the lovely Kristy Swanson, and yes, the lovely and legendary Kristy Swanson does appear in this film for one scene at the very beginning. So once again, this is a low-budget film where they had an actor or an actress with a name that you've actually heard of stop by the set for one day, and one day only, to shoot one scene, maybe shot in one take for all I know, such that they could put that person's name on the film as the lead actor or lead actress. But otherwise, the film is going to be full of people you've never heard of. So if you're tuning in just to see Kristy Swanson, this film is not a great use of your time. But that said, it's not a bad film. It's not a great film, but I would say it overachieved relative to the budget that they were apparently working with. So, mediocre film, Nemesis Nosferatu. Below average but survivable film, 11-11-11. Above average mainstream slasher film, Sorority Road 2009 remake. So it was not a bad week here at Steve the Cat headquarters, and that is other stuff Steve watched this week. Well, that brings us to the end of an oddly pink episode of Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed it. Now, if you did enjoy the show, please remember to like, share, subscribe, and follow. You can find us on Facebook at Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat. And yes, that's Tales with an A-I-L-S. Also, please remember to check out all of my friends and their great programming on PBDC TV. Whether you're interested in horror movies, true crime, weird history, or unexplained events, we're sure to have something for you. And PBDC TV is easy to find. We're on the World Wide Web at pbdctv.com, and we're on YouTube at Psycho Bunny DC. We've also got a large presence on Facebook. You can find the mothership at PBDC TV, or you can go directly to dedicated pages for channels like Psycho Bunny Death Cult, Psycho Mantium 13, and Roots Bleed Red. Each channel has a slightly different atmosphere, but they're all a part of the PBDC TV broadcast collective. We're closing in on the end of the year, but there's still a little bit of time left before the big ball drops in Times Square. We'll be back again next week with some holiday-themed films. including one film featuring an appearance by the official Scream Queen of Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat, Courtney Palm. I am so excited. I love her. It's sure to be a lot of fun, so we hope to see you again then. In the meantime, thank you once again for joining us. Everyone stay safe and have a great week. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye, everybody.